9 and 4. Welcome to the library, my perceptive patrons, regular visitors, and new guests. I am the recorder, and in this entry we continue with the third of our explorations, covering the Age of Valor. This age would see the many attempts of the Daemon Vanson to escape his confinement to once more conquer and rule Jam'mar. It would also see a series of heroes rise to counter these attempts, and their actions, choices, success, and failures would shape all that has come after. There are many events contained in this age and points of interest, and I will not have the time to go over each in fine detail, as this is, as always, just an overview of these events. We will cover the most important events, of course, but even then, some will only get a brief mention. Many of these events will end up getting their own entries in the future, as interest and time dictate. So, if there is a topic that piques your interest, make your curiosity known, and I will be sure to see it is addressed in a future entry. This is, as stated, the third entry of our exploration of the Age of Valor, and if you have not reviewed the previous entries on this subject, I encourage you to do so now, even if I'm about to give an extremely truncated recounting of the major points of our last discussion. In our last discussion, we followed the early years and decades of Genevieve, Notacare, and Blade's various adventures across the world of Jam'mar, and how, in those adventures, they had gained allies, respect, and not least of all, a growing number of a set of artifacts. We covered in brief the purpose of these hidden, and until this time, largely unknown creations to have come out of the final hours of the reign, and that served as bulwark from preventing a return to those days. We also discussed in some detail the revelation that Blade was in fact heir to the throne of the Dragwa, and how he used that status to allow our growing group of heroes to now include Genevieve's husband, Corrin Skychild, as well as their two children, Damascus and Ashtara, into the depths of the Dragwa Undercity, to both confirm Blade's status as the heir apparent, and retrieve an artifact known as the Slab of Fire, yet another of the set. We also covered the discoveries made on that journey, from the temple of an unknown god of the elder races, to meeting some of those very elder races, even if it was not truly understood as such at the time. We also witnessed the reappearance of the Analar and their sky cities to Jam'mar, and saw them return as servants of the Daemon, seeking to obtain the very artifacts for their master's release. At the end of our last entry, we saw the aftermath of that battle, as our heroes had indeed obtained the artifact, and in so doing, returned the Dragwa Homecity to its full power, allowing the defensive systems of one of the most advanced military facilities ever devised and constructed by the Analar to do as it was built to. We covered how, while victorious due to the overwhelming firepower of the now reawakened Homecity's weapons, there was still a vast amount of damage and vaster recovery efforts required to deal with the large numbers of wounded and other casualties to be attended to. Our heroes, both the young and their parents, now bore the marks of their efforts, and nonetheless prepared for the next leg of their journey. It was at this time another parting of the ways was required for a time, as Blade could not leave his people in such a state, and would catch up with the rest of the heroes in Polaron in a year's time. While there was discussion and attempts to convince him otherwise, it was ultimately futile, as Blade's sense of duty was not something he would ever deny. So, we find our groups of heroes assembled as follows: the Elven Bard, Genevieve Nodokir, her husband, Corrin Skychild, the martial artist, and Kriston, as well as their 2 teenaged elven children, the Knight Ashtara and her brother, the martial artist turned psionicist, Damastus. They would set off on the next leg of their journey as heroes of the Dragwa and honored guests of their throne. Our family of heroes set sail not first to Polaron, but to the island mountain that was known for the last age only as Cursed Mount. Before the end of the reign, it had been known as Mount Hope, and a massive arcology, capable of sustaining and holding vast populations in the event that the wars of Feather and Scale became too dangerous for the younger races. It was during the reign that it held as much as half the total population for some of the civil races, and during the long years of the reign, they had held strong, until near the end it would appear. You see, at some point after the victory of the 3 great heroes over Vanson, one of them, the hero Camille, had gifted the ruler of Mount Hope's governance with an artifact of great power as a reward for their steadfast attendance to their duties and people. This artifact was the Amulet of Camille, the elven archmage who would have been the one to cast the seals and wards that were holding the daemon in his prison. However, within days, the ruler so gifted was dead, the amulet seized by greedy and ambitious heirs. Camille returned, now having received his divine spark and wielding the might of such power, and he was less than pleased. From that day forward, none in the Mount or their descendants would ever know the kiss of the sun without irritation and discomfort, the sounds of greeting without the fear of betrayal, or the rest of forgiveness, until, in the dreams of their lines and lies, all flowed as one, repentant. And thus it had been for the eternity of the following age. The Amulet of Camille was said to still be held by that traitor kinslayer, whose hall would be at the core of the mountain. Isolated as it was from all but the most dedicated of seafarers, combined with the numerous dragon layers that dotted the outside of the mountain, it was an imposing and dangerous target to approach. With the use of clever magics, thoughtful planning, and a dash of sheer luck, our heroes made it into the mountain with only a few encounters with the resident dragons. However, it became clear that these were not the dragons of elder ages, and while still powerful, through the combined efforts of their family, even the oldest of the dragons here were dispatched quickly and quietly as would be required. Having next entered the depths of the mountains, it became clear that if anything, the journey in the Undercity had been but a warm-up for this place. The walls did not move, thankfully, but there were thousands, tens of thousands, if not more, of cursed in this vast complex, grouped into city constructs with empty halls infested with monsters directly from the deep. They discovered that at some point after the cursing of the mountain, a vast series of chasms formed stretching from the bottom areas of the mountain's roots and acted as a highway of sorts to and from the deeps. This had the unexpected benefit of fewer actually built-up communities or strongholds within the mountain itself, as many who wanted such estates and domains for themselves found far better pickings within the deeps themselves, so left, leaving behind those that already lorded over an area or their direct heirs. It did mean that progress was slow and took weeks as they explored ever deeper into the mountain, seeking the largest point of strength within its dark and blood-soaked tunnels, as that is surely where the amulet and its wielder would be. As they had learned, part of the magics involved in the curse ensured that the amulet would not be able to leave the mountain while in the hands of one of the punished. However, each member of the family grew stronger and more skilled with every encounter, every challenge met and overcome. And as they finally neared the throne room of the arch-traitor, they were a finely honed team. The battle that ensued, if anything, was anticlimactic. They had spent weeks fighting and dispatching beasts and soldiers of surpassing skill and power to get to this place. But after they had burst in, slaying the last of the guards, they saw the arch-traitor stand and begin to speak. Surely, torrents of death and destruction were about to be unleashed, but nothing would have manifested. While he was indeed trying to invoke spells of intense magnitude, nothing would ever have come of it. You see, the traitor had shattered his own mind, soul, and magical talent, trying to use the amulet to undo the curse, and in his broken state had allowed a whisper of the daemon to already take his blackened soul. However, as his mind and talent were literally broken and burnt out in the attempts that allowed the daemon's access, no amount of recitations prompted by the demon would ever result in anything. The fact that all the retainers and soldiers were bound by magical oaths to serve without question is the only reason they had been there at all. These facts, however, were only determined later, as no sooner than his chance had begun than the full offensive torrent of our heroes tore him asunder. They were not aware that he was harmless, of course, and they were in no position in allowing an archmage to chant, so acted as they had trained and practiced. In the end, the man who slew his father in his sleep for the amulet was slain almost effortlessly and laid to rest. Next, our heroes made their way back out of the mountain before the other power blocks within it could seize on the various resources and loot that our heroes could not take with them. This was more than enough to ensure that the mountain would be in a constant state of conflict over these scraps for quite some time. Making this escape easier was the fact that the amulet allowed them to find and use hidden paths to escape the mountain quicker, taking only days instead of the weeks it had taken to get in. Managing their way back to the ship that had been waiting and hiding almost beyond the horizon from the mountain, our heroes made the best possible speed to their next stop. It had become clear to them as they had fought the dragons on their way into Curse Mountain that there was some sort of draconic angle to these events, as they had met many dragons that were in league with the daemon servants, if not acting as servants themselves. Others were disdainful of even the notion of serving the daemon. And combined with the sightings of more sky cities beginning to appear, there were a lot of questions that needed answers. So our heroes went to one of the best places to learn of anything dragon-related on Jam'mar, the court of Sephiron and Cath III Genovan at Dragon's Haven. Their trip was shockingly smooth, and saw their welcoming as honored guests when their ships made it there a few weeks later. Genevieve and Blade had worked for Dragon's Haven several times, and had earned the respect and honor of the Lord and Lady, which had been extended to Genevieve's husband and children without question. Their stay lasted only a few days, or perhaps a week at most, as word came quickly from their contacts in Polaron that a new lead had been found regarding another of the artifacts. However, Ashtara, following the call of her soul, chose to stay to pursue the path of becoming a Dragon Knight, having been offered a place at the side of one of the most powerful of their number, the Platinum Knight. They had also had revealed to them that by means not clearly understood, there was a portion of the elder races, both of them, that were now tied to the whims and the wills of the daemon, regardless of their personal ethics or morals or anything else in their life before that point. These elders and their descendants would always be but a whim from being turned into nothing but a thrall and fully devoted to the daemon's aims. This is why so many dragons of otherwise violently discordant types were not only working together, but in tandem with the Analar. Soon enough rested and ready, our heroes said their farewells to both allies and family. The parting was bittersweet, but with time becoming an increasingly precious thing, our heroes soon had to make their way towards Polaron, and hopefully their next artifact. Unlike the trip to Dragon's Haven, the passage to Polaron was frequently interrupted by pirate, dragon, and other sea monster attacks. By the time they arrived in Polaron nearly 2 months later, they were among a skeleton crew of survivors, and our heroes themselves were wearing thin after days and weeks of constant battles. Thankfully, what they found in Polaron was a safe haven, and news that while there had been probing attacks here and there, as well as elsewhere around the world, they had not been full-on assaults. It seemed the defeat at the Homecity had made the agents of the daemon cautious. Over the next few weeks, our heroes would confer with the likes of Smoke to the state of things across Jam'mar, as Damascus pored over vast stacks of tomes in Polaron's great libraries, looking for any clues as to the location of the remaining slabs and artifacts. They were aided in these efforts by the gnome known simply as Kalor, the owner of the bar with the same name, as well as the man behind most of Polaron's success and governance. You see, Kalor was the mortal avatar of one of the dragon gods, the Lord of the Ore-Scaled, typically seen as the good dragons, Halor. Kalor had built up Polaron from the earliest ages to serve as a bastion for good and the safety of the civil peoples of the world. Now, with the threat of Vanson again looming large, Kalor, who had seen the daemon's ravages once before having lived through the reign, was understandably on board with helping our heroes in their efforts. Also during this time, they at last met their mysterious benefactor, the ones whose leads and jobs had led our heroes onto this path and kept them stocked well in coin and fame. This was one of the agents of the Nine Wings himself, known only as the Hand of the Nine Wings. He appeared as an elf and explained much to our heroes. How the prison that was now beginning to fail was never intended as such. How it was supposed to have been the tomb of Vanson, where his cursed corpse was to have been disposed of after the heroes had killed him. However, the heroes had failed, and containment was the best that they were able to manage. Now, after thousands of years, Vanson had regrown his power and more. There would be no letting him stay contained. He had to be destroyed. Even without the artifacts that they now sought, the daemon was somehow able to exert his will beyond his prison. This meant that there were other paths he could take to escape, if he was given enough time. No, they were going to have to go get the rest of the artifacts, return to the temple where the seal was held, and go after Vanson directly. Along with these revelations, Damascus made known that along with the slabs that they had, those being the slabs of water, the first one they found, earth, which they had found in the mines under Deepgate, darkness, the slab they found from a secretive organization of elder lore and artifice known as the Revivers, fire, obtained on their trip to the Isle of Mist, and finally, the Amulet of Camille, which they, of course, had just retrieved. Damascus had discovered where 2 of the last 3 slabs were, but had no leads on either the Hammer of Vapor or the Blade of Monroe. The Slab of Air was in an ancient and lost magical fort in the clouds, one of the ancient elven house Skychild's holdings. Coincidentally, the Slab of Light, however, was actually at hand, as it was being used to power the various great lighthouses of Polaron. However, much to his consternation, the last slab, the Slab of Time, was without any clues or proper mention in any text that he could find. The Hand of the Nine Wings, however, informed them that in the retrieval of the last 2 slabs, the path will be revealed for them to find the artifacts as a result. He further told them of the Analar's advanced teleportation system of gates, and how it was such a gate that served as the door to the daemon's prison. He further told them that they could find such a gate within Polaron, but before they could use it, they would have to find the correct sequence of codes and words to activate and target it. Before they could discuss the matter any further, what seemed to be tremors of an earthquake shook the entirety of Polaron. Soon, on the heels of that, a roar that shattered every non-magical piece of glass in the entirety of the city was heard. Low, long, and terrifying. Moments later, another roar. But this time, it carried words along with its imminent threat and malice. I seek the lesser she-elf Genevieve Moongem for parley. Genevieve Nodokir, I call for you. Without a thought, our heroes and everyone in attendance save the Hand of the Nine Wings, who had vanished in the commotion, turned and rushed to try to keep up with Genevieve as she marched out defiantly to meet that voice. And how that meeting will go, as well as the pivotal consequences of the choices and actions taken, will be where we begin our next entry on the Age of Valor. Until then, my perceptive patrons, regular visitors, and new guests, I have been, as always, the Recorder, and I thank you for your time, as well as your continued interest in the realms of Jam'mar. Until you next make your way back to the library for our next entry, by the 9 and 4, be well, take care of yourselves and each other. If you'd like to contribute to the further exploration and explanation of the realms, please consider leaving a comment, a like, and sharing the video around. I read all the comments and make efforts to reply to each. Thank you for helping to grow the channel, and know I look forward to each and every one of your comments. Other methods of support can be found in the channel's description. Thank you for watching.